So the next thing we're going to look at is back in VS Code. Before we do that, let's change. We're going to switch our branch back to main. And we're going to fetch origin, make sure we're up to date. And then it'll give me the option to pull origin. I'm going to pull the origin. And we're good there. So make sure you're on main and you've fetched and pulled. Because that'll make sure we're all at the same starting point. Okay. Now, what was the most important file I said that you want to worry about? The robot file. Where is the robot file? It's somewhere in source, but here's the thing, you don't have to know where it is. Because there's another handy shortcut in VS Code. Control P. If you do Control P, it will let you open a file just by typing the name of the file. So the file I want is robot, and it opens the robot file for me. It's a super handy command if you don't remember where the file is. Okay, who in here has prior experience programming in Java? Okay, so a couple people. There's a few things we're going to talk about. I'm going to try to touch on the things about Java you need to know as we go, but I've got another route for you to learn the Java you need to know that we'll talk about at the end of this. So I'm in the robot file. I don't need to see all of my stuff over here, so I'm going to just click on the files and just let this take up the whole space. And I'm going to switch over real quick so that we can make a note on something. So when you are working in Java, there are two kinds of files. You will see either a .java file or you will see a .class file. .java files are the ones you want. Those are the ones you can edit and make changes to. The class files you can look at and are good for learning about stuff, but do not open them to change them because they are generated files. Java files are text files that contain your source code. Class files have been, I want to say compiled using the JavaC tool, but just know that if you're looking at a .class file, you can't edit it. It is read-only, and if you make changes to it, they're not going to do anything. So we're going to switch back. And so on here, I think I could. Okay, so I don't have it open here, but I think if I look in deploy, let's see, no. If I look in build, yeah. So right here, there is a robot.class file. And I could open it, but we don't want that. So always make sure you're opening the .java file. Okay. So let's talk about the structure of this file. So at first we're going to see a whole bunch of lines here in green. Anybody know anything about these lines? What do you know?
They're comment lines. They're
They-
not actually part of code.
Say that last part again.
They're not actually the part of code.
Right, so these are comments. These are notes to yourself. There's a common saying, code you wrote 6 months ago may as well have been written by somebody else. Comments are a great way to prevent that from happening. And so in this case, they're using a lot of comments to explain kind of why the code is structured like it is. These that start with these 2 slashes are only good for 1 line. So that's why each of these 3 lines starts with 2 slashes. These lines down here, though, are what are called multi-line comments. And multi-line comments basically span between / asterisk all the way to a asterisk / back to back. And so really they don't need all these asterisks here. These are just a special formatting thing. But I could type something here like this is a multi-line comment. And I could delete all these extra, not that one. and it's still okay with it as a comment. Any questions on that? Okay. So that's kind of a thing that you'll see in most programming languages. They don't all have the same format, but they all have the same idea, that you want to leave notes to yourself that are in the code but aren't part of the code. This next thing is something that is specific to Java. The first line in the file that's not a comment should be the package line. And Java is very specific about where files live. The package tells you how to get to the file. So I'm going to open up File Explorer again. Source main Java. So the Java folder is kind of the top of the hierarchy. The package goes frc robot. Well, after Java, I've got frc robot. The package is the sequence of folders you have to go to get to the file you're in. So if I'm in the Java folder, I go frc robot. If I'm in the package, frc robot, boom, that's where my file is. So that's what the package line is telling you. It says, where is this file? Yeah.
Does that mean that you can change where the file is by that, or is that just a statement?
It's just a statement. If you're going to move the file, you have to move the file to a different folder and change the package. So if I were to add, let's see, if I were to do this, if I were to add a new folder inside of Robot and call it my folder, and I were to go into my folder and I were to create a new thing, I'm in the frc robot my folder, frc robot my folder.
So automatically puts that
Yeah, if you generate it using the special generator, it will automatically create it for you. And a lot of stuff in these files is going to be there for you by default. If you create it in the right sequence of steps, it will do a lot of this for you, which is really nice. But we don't need that, so I'm going to delete that. Okay, back there. Don't need robot. Okay. So any questions about package? And every file will have a package. The next set of lines you're going to find are these imports. Imports are sometimes called, in Java they're called imports. C and C++ use include. C# uses the word using, but they all kind of mean the same thing. And all it's saying is I want to use code that is somewhere else. So if you look here on line 15, there's this thing called timed robot. Timed robot is something that the developers at WPILib wrote. It exists in the library. It is available for us to use. We didn't write it, and it's not in our project. This import tells Java where that code is. So the way I talk about imports are a way to use code that somebody else wrote. That somebody else can be you, but it doesn't have to be you. For example, no, we won't do that right now. So timed robot is something that somebody else wrote. WPILib wrote it. Line 7 tells Java where timed robot comes from. If I don't have this line, go ahead and delete it and save it. And you'll see something happens. What do you see happens?
Everything turns red.
There's a whole lot of red. Because Java doesn't know what timed robot is. Timed robot cannot be resolved to a type. That means I don't know what the heck that is. I've never seen it before in my life. So how do you fix the problem? Well, you can put the import back, but what if you don't know where it is? 99% of the time, I don't know where the things I'm using come from. But I know vaguely that they come from somewhere. So here's a handy tool that Visual Studio Code has for you. If you put your cursor over the word timed robot, just put the cursor in there somewhere, and then press Control period. You should get something that looks like this pop up. And these are the quick fixes. We want to import timed robot from edu WPI first WPI libj. Now, I didn't know that that's exactly where that file lives. but that looks like where it lives, right? It's in a WPILib package. So I press enter, it'll put that line back there for me. And if I save the file, all the red goes away. So if you're ever trying to use something that you didn't write or that lives in another file, and you don't know exactly what the package is for it, you can use that control period trick. And when we were talking about packages earlier, edu.wpi.first.wpilibj.timedrobot, this is a package, right? This is the package for timed robot. So it's another way not only to let Java know, hey, where is the file that I'm working in? It's a logical way for Java to be like, hey, where's this thing that I'm trying to use at? Any questions about imports? Yeah.
How did you, I missed the first part of that,
Which part?
of the quick fix.
Yeah, so in this case, I got rid of the import, or maybe I forgot to include it, right? If I have my cursor on the thing that's got the red line, and I just clicked in it. The cursor's there. It doesn't have to. You can select the whole thing. You can just select part of it, or just put the cursor, and you press Control period. That's how you get the menu to pop up. You can also just hover over it, and you'll get the option to click on Quick Fix, and then it'll boom import.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions up to that point? Beyond that, yeah.
So could you create, so could you put like variable is equal to import timed robot, and then instead of using timed robot as the word, you can use the variable name, or?
So, okay, so the question is, can you basically use an alias? I'm gonna be honest, I don't actually know if Java supports that. I know some languages do support that. I have not had to do it in Java, so I don't know if Java supports it. Generally, if it's stuff like in the libraries, I would avoid trying to do stuff like that anyway, just because it'll make it harder for somebody. Like if I come in, I know what the libraries look like. It's going to be easier for me to help you if you're using that same convention. So I don't know if it does, but if it does, I would avoid it when possible. Anybody else have a question? Okay. So that's package and import. You'll find that at the top of the file. Then you get into the meat of the file, the most important part in Java. So most of this Java code lives in something called a class. And a class starts with an opening curly brace, the squiggle, and it ends with a closing curly brace, another squiggle. Now in VS Code, on this line, I can click on this arrow, and it'll collapse it for me, and you can see almost all of this file is the class. So there's a couple of things to know about a class. One, what's the name of this class?
Robot.
This class is named robot, public class robot. What's the name of this file? All right, so just like the package was the list of folders, guess what's going to be true about the name of the class?
Would be the same as a file.
Let's take a look at main. What's the name of the class? Class main. What's the name of the file? The name of your class is going to be the name of your file. And again, if you generate the files the expected way, VS Code and they're going to do that for you. But if you ever get a weird error, that's one thing to check. So this is a class named robot. Now, what is a class? So let's talk about, this might be the last topic we really get into tonight. So in programming, there are a few ways to program. And these are called paradigms. One very big and very popular paradigm is called object-oriented programming, often abbreviated as OOP. Object-oriented programming is a way of programming in which everything or almost everything in your code either represents a real object, a real thing, or a real abstract idea of a thing. So a robot is a thing, right? So in Java, we're going to write our code about a robot, a thing. A robot has motors. Motors are things. The robot code is going to have motors. And so it's a way of structuring your code so that it's not, do this, do this, do this, do this. Instead, it's a way of defining your robot as being a bunch of things that interact with each other. And there's, reasons to do that, reasons not to do it. In some contexts, that's cumbersome. It's, it holds you back, it restricts you. In other contexts, it makes it easier to program because the code is going to more reflect what's happening in the real world. So when you say, hey, I want the joystick to move to cause this motor to move, well, that's a thing, and they're interacting with each other. So in object-oriented programming, you have things which are objects. And don't get held up on an object being a real thing, right? There is a variability between how real the object is. So an object can be a real physical thing, or it can be more of an idea, but it's some way a human can understand a thing. How do you make objects? So if you're going to make a building, what do you need first to make a building? You need blueprints. So if the object is the thing, the class is the blueprint. You could make 10 robots. You could. The robot class is the blueprint for the code object. A better example is a motor, right? If you've got a robot, and that robot's got, let's say 4 wheels. Each of those wheels has a motor, right? Well, if all 4 of those motors are the same kind of motor, I don't want to write motor code 4 times. I want to make a motor class that defines how does a motor work and just use motor 4 times. And so the class defines, hey, this is how every motor behaves. And then I can make individual motors based off of that blueprint. So have in your head that the class is the blueprint. It defines what goes into the thing as well as what the thing can do. And those are the 2 big things. So with a class, it's basically what is it as well as what can it do. If you can remember those 2 things, classes will make a lot more sense. So switching back, we have class robot. Now there's this extends timed robot. And what that's saying is there's a blueprint for a thing called a timed robot. And if I right click on timed robot and go to definition, I can actually see that blueprint. Now look up at the top of my screen. What do you see after timed robot? Dot class. It's not a thing we can edit, but it's a definition we can read. So this is the definition, the blueprint for a timed robot that the people at WPI-lib wrote. And if you look through this, there's a whole lot of stuff in here. And it actually goes deeper. The timed robot extends this iterative robot base, which itself is another blueprint. But that blueprint extends another blueprint. All that to say is there's a whole lot of infrastructure that WPI-lib put into place for us that we get for free. We get all the stuff they did so that our blueprint gets to be much simpler with all of the other stuff kind of going on in the background. And, okay. Any questions up to that point?
So did you just go up to robot, the class thing, and left click?
Yes, if you click on timed robot right here in the file and you right click on it and go to definition, so this first menu item, it takes you to the timedrobot.class file. Then I clicked on iterative robot base, go to definition, it took me to iterative robot base. Then I clicked on robot base, go to definition, and it took me to the robot base class.
Okay.
And so that's a way to kind of dig through the code and see what the other people wrote. Any other questions up to that point?